Good morning, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. I wanted to put this out while it was fresh in my mind. Still pretty early here, but it's pretty fresh, so I wanted to go ahead and get this information out to y'all. Um, got an early morning text message from a friend of mine in Canada, which I thought was kind of interesting because I hear from once in a while, not all that often. I mean, people are busy, they have families and so forth, and there's a big time difference and so forth, wherever people live. Um, but I thought it was interesting that he texted me when he did because I was in the process of either beginning to watch and listen, or it just had popped up on my phone. And no, I'm not picking on poor Nate, Canadian prepper. I know it may seem that way from my last video, but I'm really not. But Nate put himself out there, and it was a pretty interesting video, and I shared it. Uh, did I share it to the community page, the post? Yeah, I think I did. But anyway, if people want to watch it, you can go to the post, or just Prepper News is the name of the channel for this particular one. But anyway, it's pretty interesting. Like I said, because I get this text message from my friend in Canada, and he's talking to me about the Gaza peace deal that's gone through, at least the first phase of it, and Daniel 11 and so forth, and just a few things that he mentioned, and I'll get into that more in a second. Something I mentioned to him that was previously brought to my attention because people contact me about all sorts of things, and stuff that's going on, just like they probably do you as well, or you contact other people, share information or what have you. But Nate's video was interesting to me because I'm calling this Into the Fire. Technically, the whole thing would be like jumping from the jumping from the frying pan into the fire. I'm sure everybody's heard of that saying before. But into the fire is just much shorter and sounds better because that's what it seems to me that poor Nate is doing because he wants to leave Canada. And I understand that from the authoritarianism and totalitarianism aspect of things because they want to confiscate, you know, weapons. They want to confiscate what people own. And in Canada now, they really want to put the screws to the people. It's not going to be much better here in the U.S. though soon, okay? I'll get into that more in a minute, but poor Nate. But because he doesn't believe in Jesus, he doesn't believe in the Word of God, he doesn't believe in the Bible, he's an agnostic, he doesn't get it. But I thought it was funny because he mentioned in his video, he said, "This is why I've been telling people to get their house in order." I was like, well, how many times have we heard that? I've said it, you probably said it, other people have said it. Real men of God, women of God have said it. Get your house in order, get your house in order. We've heard that parroted for probably the last 10 years or so. But when I say it or whatever, people are referring to your spiritual house first. Well, you're not going to be able to put a spiritual house in order if you don't believe in God. you know, so I'm not trying to laugh at him, but I mean at the same time, it's funny to me that people say get your house in order, get your house in order, but they're looking at it from he at least is looking at it from a physical aspect of things. Preparation for the apocalypse, preparation, for prepping everything that you need and storing goods and everything else, and that's wise. Don't get me wrong. I'm not mocking that in any way. It's smart. It's smart to do that. But you got to have your spiritual house in order first, or all the rest is useless. It's an exercise in futility. It'll only bring you and take you so far. But I just thought it was funny that he actually used that term, get your house in order. You know, and so I started thinking about that as I'm listening to his video, and I understand why he's leaving Canada, and he's looking at all the signs out there of World War III imminent, and so, same thing as a lot of other people. And because gold has absolutely skyrocketed to $4,050, which is insane. and silver isn't far from behind, you know. I mean, just gold and silver skyrocketing, but gold especially. Well, that means the collapse of the dollar. All right. Anybody that knows anything about finances, you've been listening to anybody that knows anything about finances, you know that its gold continues to go up, the dollar continues to go down. And it doesn't matter what the stock market says. That's not a how do I say it, a actual predictor, for lack of a better term, of what the true economy is. The true economy is the people that get on TikTok, which they probably shouldn't because a lot of them are telling on themselves, but TikTok or YouTube or other social media outlets, and they talk about what's really going on in their families or in their workplace or, in their, town or city or whatever else, and how people are struggling and this and that. And, you know, I mean, from a, how do I say it without being too insulting here? The people that are literally struggling and following the rules, let's put it that way, you know, and no matter what they do, they still can't make ends meet, working two, three jobs, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, whatever it is. I mean, the ones I don't think are completely full of it and they're literally telling people, what's going on in their lives and how they're just, barely keeping their head above water. That's the true economy. Not all these people that have been, like I said before many times, people can research it themselves. You don't have to believe me. I don't expect you to believe me. These people are telling on themselves. Like I said, they're foolish. They're telling on themselves. They're talking about how angry they are that their benefits are being cut or removed, or they have to pay the money back that they stole for so many years, with their schemes and manipulations and scams and so forth. And just because they wanted to, figure out a way to, like I said, scam the system or whatever, and now they've been caught. Kind of reminds me, I was talking to my wife about this yesterday, years ago. Well, maybe not even years ago. I don't remember how long ago. I remember Pastor Ben Faircloth saying, one or more of his messages, there's a payday someday. I remember when I heard him say those things, I was thinking to myself, well, it's for America, that we're going to pay for rejecting God and we're going to pay for not following his laws and precepts. And we will, eventually. We will. We kind of are beginning to now, but we will. But maybe the payday someday is for all of these people that have been scamming for so long and manipulating and scheming, and taking what doesn't belong to them, but they've been living off the government teat, for lack of a better term, for so long and not doing anything to help their situation, but or very little, you know, and now they've been caught. And like I said, a lot of these people have been so foolish they've told on themselves because, they get on TikTok or YouTube or whatever else and they tell their story and they're angry. They're upset that now the spigot is being cut off and now the free money is no longer there and they don't know what they're going to do. I know that sounds really harsh and judgmental of me, but listen to it for yourself. That's all I can say. I've shared it quite a few times, mostly to the Substack because there's just too much language for the ones for YouTube. But if you go to a site called Market Gains, you can see all of this. Sometimes they post the same thing over and over and over again because I guess people don't see it beforehand. But I mean, these are people literally telling on themselves, whining and complaining that they don't have the government subsidies anymore. Their SNAP, their EBT, whatever else has been cut off, completely cut off or reduced to the point that they can barely use it anymore, get anything off of it. So, anyway, yeah, I didn't mean to really go off on that tangent, but talking to my wife and everything yesterday, and people that work so hard, I mean, work their fingers to the bone practically, and put up with all kinds of garbage from idiot bosses and just crappy corporations and whatever else, just to try to make ends meet, and they're busting butt, and working as hard. And some people have been getting $2,000 to $3,000 a month for free, because they've learned how to scam the system. Well, that's not right. It's just not right. People can think whatever they want to think, but it's just not right. Not when people are out there busting butt, barely have anything to show for it, and other people are just, you know, learning. They've schemed and manipulated their way into practical wealth at times. But now the government's caught up with them. Like I said before, government may be corrupt, but it's not stupid. And now they've caught up with them, and now people are either going to go to federal prison for their schemes, and or they got to pay money back. So there's a payday someday, right? So anyway, listening to Nate, it just kind of reminded me. It's like, dude, you jumping from the frying pan into the fire, because it's not going to be much better in the U.S. I mean, maybe it's better in the U.S. now than it is in Canada, or will be, because of the confiscation and the laws and like I said, the authoritarianism, totalitarianism, and so forth. But it's but this is Mystery Babylon. Getting back to the word, and I mean, and I actually posted. I said you're jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Not that anybody's going to care or listen to what I had to say, or even probably read the comment, but I just said Revelation 18. I said this is Mystery Babylon. I said so. It's like so, it's like the U.S. might be okay overall for now. I'll get into that more in a minute, but we're not Canada as of yet, but it won't be long, most likely, and then I was thinking about, with my text conversation with my friend in Canada, because people have contacted me about this too. It's like, well, what about this and that, and what's going on here and there, and the Gaza peace deal, and Daniel 11 and the King of the North. And I was like, yeah, all that's interesting. It's fascinating. It's very, very biblical, and and it makes a whole lot of sense. So, but it was a friend that sent me something a few days before that talked about. I guess I mentioned something, and then they said that, well, October 21st is the International Day of Peace. I was like, really? I didn't know that. That's interesting. Because I really don't look at the calendar to see what day is what day, you know. I mean, but Tuesday, October 21st is the International Day of Peace. And I was like, yeah, that's a day to definitely watch, because what are they saying now with the Gaza peace deal going through, at least the first phase of it? Peace and safety. And what does the word say about when they say peace and safety? Sudden destruction comes upon them, right? So is that going to be the case? I don't know. Maybe. I hope not, for people's sake, but could be. So, but October 21st, which is what's today? The 8th, I think? 9th? What is the 9th, I believe. So, we got, what, if there's any significance to that, it's like 12 days from now or whatever. I don't know if there will be or not. But I just thought that was interesting, because also Hank, God's Soldiers Ministry, he and his team are scheduled, or they're scheduling to go, I guess, downtown Indianapolis or whatever, to preach to the witches and the warlocks and the Satanists and everybody involved in the seances and the Freemason garbage and all the Halloween garbage, and they're going to preach Jesus down there. And that happens to be on October 21st. And there may be some other significance to that date that I'm not even aware of. And I'm not date setting or anything. I'm just telling people that October 21st, the International Day of Peace, and that's the same time that Hank and his team plan to go and preach Jesus to all the pagans down there, in Indianapolis or whatever. And I just find it all very, very interesting, the timing of everything. So when people contact me, I just say, well, I'm just watching the 21st. I don't know if anything significant will happen before that time or not. Probably, maybe. I know some people are watching the 10th. I can't even remember why, to be honest with you. I can't even remember why. But the 10th is tomorrow. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, watch every day, I guess. But anyway, getting back to this whole thing, the totalitarianism and authoritarianism and whatnot, it's just like, I think about the UK as well, because again, God's Soldiers Ministry, Hank, he posted a short clip of a street preacher in the UK basically being told that they can't preach on the street anymore. That because you know people don't want to hear Jesus, and they don't want to hear about what he's preaching about, and he can't preach, at least on that particular corner. I guess he might be able to preach in other areas, but he can't preach there. And it always cracks me up. I'm not making fun. I kind of am. Okay, I kind of am. I'm not. I'm not. I'm gonna be honest. Okay. I just find it. I find it humorous. That the police in the UK are called bobbies. In England, they're called bobbies. I'm thinking, how do you respect that? Oh no, the bobbies are after us. I found out about that years ago because I used to work. I used to actually be an operations supervisor for a Fortune 500 um, security company years ago in Orlando, near Celebration, Florida, near Disney. And the owner of the company was English. And we would have to sit in with on staff meetings or whatever, and they would come in with their English accents or whatever, and they would talk about their police officers being bobbies. I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I just thought that was funny because to me it just sounds gay. I mean, cop is constable on patrol, right? Police officer, that sounds a little authoritative, or officer, or whatever the case may be. Deputy is even okay. I mean, still makes me think of Fife, but I mean, but bobbies? I'm sorry. I just find that funny. Especially, they're trying to be so authoritarian and totalitarian in the UK as well as in Canada, and I'm sure other areas. But it's like, how do you respect people called bobbies? And I think some of them aren't even armed. They have like ASP, collapsible batons, or maybe some pepper spray or something. And I'm just like, whatever, man, whatever. Just cracks me up, man. Bobbies. But anyway, I had to laugh about that because I'm just thinking about all of this, the totalitarianism, the authoritarianism, people wanting to come to the U.S. And I'm just like, well, right now, depending upon where you live, might be okay. Like, excuse me, clear my throat. Where I live, currently, it's okay. People seem to be pretty oblivious, not excuse me, not really knowing what's going on. Don't seem to really care. From what I can tell, the people I contact, the people that I come in contact with and talk to, they seem to be more concerned about college football this weekend. How the team's gonna do. I'm just being honest. That's where their focus seems to be. They don't. I'm not gonna say they don't have a care in the world because I'm aware of people. Things happen in people's families. Family members get sick, wind up in the hospital, or whatever else. So I'm not going to go that far. But they don't seem to be too focused on anything going on in the world or even locally. They're pretty oblivious. They're pretty clueless. Like I said, they're more focused on college football this weekend, how the team's going to do on Saturday, kind of thing. I mean, I'm just being honest. They just don't seem to care or notice much of anything. But like I said before, I live in a very rural area, where and it's pretty conservative for the most part. And as long as things aren't really directly affecting people to where they have to respond or react, they're pretty much just going to keep to themselves, mind their own business, not say a whole lot. And that's kind of like how I am too, for the most part. Very, very simple. Simple, but very simple. Like I told people before a while back, it's like the Leonard Skinner song Simple Man, or Joe Walsh's Ordinary Average Guy, or whatever. That's pretty much my life. I mean, I'm like, very, very simple. And people would be shocked and amazed at how simple my life is and how simple I try to keep it. Not complicated at all. I don't like complications. I try to keep it as simple as I can and as much as possible. But in the major cities, though, that's not the case. If you're living in Portland or Chicago or Memphis or LA or any of the other areas that they want to invade, attack, whatever you want to call it, come in and infiltrate, whatever. Not so simple now. Not so simple living in those areas. So pretty soon, all the major cities are going to look like that. I mean, because you get away with it in one city, you're going to get away with it in another city, and another city, and another city, and another city. And pretty much all the major cities, U.S. cities, are going to be like that. And it's just like, oh, that's going to be fun. That'll be enjoyable living like that, right? Where nothing but lawsuits and people wanting to sue everybody and people wanting to take everybody down and using this amendment or that amendment and impeach this and remove him or her and arrest them and arrest that and it's like, oh, that sounds like fun. Doesn't that sound enjoyable? That sounds like a great time, right? Well, that's what Nate's headed into, whether he recognizes it or not, because this is Mystery Babylon. So you're literally jumping from the frying pan into the fire. You know, I try to tell him, but I don't know. I don't know if he'll read the comment or care or not. Maybe it'll make him curious to just open up the Bible, find a Bible somewhere, and read Revelation 18 and see if he gets some revelation out of it, because, yeah, this is Mystery Babylon. So it's not going to be any better here. Like they say, the grass is not always greener. Most of the time it's not. So, but hey, teach their own, right? But anyway, that's about all I have, I think. I just interesting conversations, text conversations I have with people, sometimes phone conversations, and people send me emails and whatnot. And I'm just watching the 21st personally, the International Day of Peace. When people label something and put a date out saying this is the International Day of Peace, I'm thinking, because what's the word say? Peace and safety, then sudden destruction. Oh, I will say this though. One last thing before I forget. Say, for instance, hypothetically, that the Deagle report and Sammy Hagar's crack in the world and all the other stuff that people have reported on or believe or prophesied or think is going to happen or predicted or whatever. Say, for instance, we get through 2025, for the most part, still mostly unscathed. I don't think that's going to happen, personally. But say, for instance, it does. We still have half of October or whatever, all November, December, okay, before we get into 2026. So there's still quite a bit of time, two and a half full months, basically. So, say for instance, we do, all right? Well, most people may know, but maybe you don't know. It's 2026 that they really put the screws to us here in this nation. It's 2026, and I was thinking about this because my niece and her husband, they're expecting to have her baby in December, actually. So they're getting in just in time. They're going to have the birth just in time. Because in 2026, people can look this up for yourself. You can research it yourself. That's when the digital ID goes into a full effect or whatever. And people that deliver have children in 2026, well, your child belongs to the government. It just does. It's not your child, it's the government's child. You don't have to believe me. Research it yourself. The information's out there. Research it yourself. So in 2026, your children, a child born in 2026 automatically belongs to the government. So, that's like I said, that's when they put the digital ID and everything into effect, and that's when they really put the screws to us is next year. So, like I said, even if we escape this year unscathed for the most part, no crack in the world, the Deagle report just turns out to be bunk, and I don't want to say everything's fine, but people get what they want. They get their holidays and they get their time and they get this and they get that. Pretty much what everybody expects and thinks they're entitled to, and demands or whatever else. Maybe not everybody, but in this nation overall, that's just what we do. We celebrate holidays and time with this and time with that and family and on it goes. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, getting together with family and just, enjoying time together and whatnot. There's nothing, friends and fellowship. That's great, but the time frame that people do it in and schedule it around and so forth and all the paganism surrounding it or whatever, there's definitely something wrong with that. But whatever, I'm either preaching to the choir there or I'm preaching a foreign language to people. I'm not sure which. But as people have to research. That's all I can say. You have to research, you have to study, you have to read, you have to find things out for yourself. But 2026, man, sounds bad. Okay, that sounds really, really bad. So, like I said, poor Nate, I guess he gave up some property he was going to get up there and, and decided against it at the last minute and planning to come to the U.S. And I'm like, dude, I'm not saying it's going to be great in Canada, but it's not. This is Mystery Babylon, okay? But like I said, if people don't believe in the Word, they don't believe in God, they don't believe, in anything having to do with end time prophecy, revelation, anything of that nature, then they're going to be confused and they're not going to know what to do. And so they're going to jump from the frying pan into the fire. And that's unfortunate, but everybody has the opportunity to come to Jesus. Everybody has the opportunity to study to show themselves approved. Everybody has the opportunity to make good and right decisions for themselves and their family. And I'm just grateful I live where I live right now. Everything's cool. Everything's fine. Copacetic, whatever the word you want to use, currently. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful for it. And I'm blessed and I'm appreciative of that. Because this one is not going to last forever. I know that. I know that. But man, being in the major U.S. cities right now, wow. I do not envy people trapped there. I do not envy people trapped in those situations at all. So I hope you're not one of them. But if you are, get out if you can. If not, get your house in order if you haven't yet. But it starts spiritually. It starts with Jesus being the center of everything. And then from there, you base your preparations and whatever your plans and ideas are and whatever you think you should do around Jesus and around all of what he says and what he wants you to do. And that's how you do this thing. That's how you navigate through this. You put Jesus in the center, and then you listen to the Holy Spirit, and then you obey the Holy Spirit and do what he tells you to do. And that's how you navigate through this whole thing. All right, I think that's it. Y'all have a good and blessed day. Take care, and I'll talk to you some other time. Bye bye.